A Virginia man claims he spotted Bigfoot and he has the video to prove it. This was shot apparently near the Intracoastal Waterway earlier this month.
Bigfoot has just been proven to be real. After a shocking encounter, Albert Ostman saw it in the wild forests of British Columbia. He kept his story hidden for years, only sharing it when tales of lethal creatures were wildly popular. Why couldn't he say a word for decades after a face-to-face with the beast? Join us as we expose the latest evidence of Bigfoot and why it's crucial to find this mysterious beast. The Ostman Sasquatch horror story. Ostman's story describes a family of Sasquatches, father, mother, and two young ones, acting almost like humans. They lived in a deep forest, making the creatures relatable, but also suspiciously convenient for a good story. People often question Ostman's story because he waited many years to tell it, right when interest in such creatures was very high. This timing makes some think he made it up to gain attention. His escape method, using snuff to make the adult Sasquatch unconscious, sounds like something out of a movie and lacks real evidence. As the story became popular, it wasn't because people believed it, but because it sparked their imagination about unknown, wild places. The story also reflects Ostman's own life, a hard worker always seeking new adventures. Perhaps telling this Bigfoot story was his way of finding a new kind of fame, different from his usual life. Stories like Ostman's often reveal more about the person telling them and their audience than about the actual subject. Such legends, like Bigfoot, are cultural symbols showing our connection to nature and our love for extraordinary tales. These stories continue not because they are proven true, but because they fulfill our need for wonder and escape from daily life. They make us curious and adventurous about the world, even if they remain unconfirmed. As Ostman's tale is passed down, it becomes a folklore, blending myth and his supposed personal experience, challenging our ideas of reality and fiction. The Sasquatch, in his story, is more a legend for storytelling than a creature to be scientifically documented. Ostman, driven by curiosity and perhaps by the potential for gain, took a local indigenous guide through Toba Inlet. The guide told many exaggerated stories, including one about a gold prospector who always found gold but disappeared one day, rumored to be taken by a Sasquatch, though it was likely just an accident. Despite his initial skepticism about these stories, Ostman's curiosity about the alleged gold mine grew. After his guide left him, promising to return in 3 weeks, Ostman trekked further into the wilderness, approximately 10 miles in search of the legendary mine. He established a strategic base camp, hoping it would serve as a secure spot. However, the tranquility of the camp was soon disrupted. Ostman awoke one morning to find his campsite turned upside down without any apparent cause. No signs of an intruder were evident, no footprints or disturbed foliage that could point to an animal or human culprit. The disturbance suggested either an extraordinarily stealthy animal or perhaps the capricious nature of the wind, though to Ostman it might have seemed as though some spectral hand had played a part. Day by day, the persistent solitude and strange events began to erode Ostman's initial dismissal of the local legends. Each snap of a branch or whisper of the wind seemed to confirm the guide's tales. Though such noises were typical in a dense forest, the idea of a Sasquatch seemed less ludicrous in the solitude of the night. Ostman found himself vacillating between rational explanations for the disturbances at his camp and a creeping suspicion that there might be a sliver of truth in the old tales. Despite his inclination towards logic, the inexplicable nature of his disrupted campsite left room for his imagination to explore more fantastical explanations. As time passed, every odd occurrence seemed to weave itself into the fabric of the narrative Ostman had initially doubted. The boundary between reality and folklore blurred. Whether due to the isolation, the occasional discovery of unidentifiable tracks, or the eerie silence of the forest, something in the depths of Toba Inlet seemed to challenge his skepticism, suggesting that some places might hold on to their storied pasts, irrespective of one's belief in them. This challenge to his skepticism deepened as each day passed, turning every unexplained sound or sight into a potential sign that the improbable might indeed be possible. Albert Ostman's quiet trip turns into something strange, leading into his odd experiences. The uncontrollable forces of the silent forest. Ostman's experience in the wilderness grew increasingly unsettling as his stay extended. The forest's quiet was no longer just an absence of noise, but seemed laden with the potential of hidden watchers or listeners. Each day, the line between his previous skepticism and the eerie coincidences that unfolded became increasingly thin, making the forest feel like an active observer of his activities, possibly testing his resolve or even sanity. As the days turned into weeks, the odd disturbances at his camp and the noises that punctuated the night seemed to become more than mere coincidences, suggesting that perhaps the forest was not just a backdrop to his adventure, but an active, unsettling participant. Before anything unusual happened, Albert Ostman had a straightforward plan: to camp alone in search of gold. But things took a strange turn on the second night when he noticed his backpack had been searched and food was missing. Instead of leaving the area to continue his gold-seeking adventure, he decided to stay at the campsite, hoping to catch whoever or whatever was tampering with his belongings. Night after night, Ostman tried to stay alert. He sat by the dying campfire, straining his ears for any sound that might hint at the presence of an intruder. The forest, however, remained maddeningly silent. No shadows moved between the gnarled trees. No twigs snapped underfoot. There was nothing to see. His vigil seemed pointless, and despite his determination, he eventually fell asleep from exhaustion. On the third night, something even more bizarre occurred. As Ostman slipped into sleep, he suddenly felt as if he was being lifted off the ground. Wrapped tightly in his sleeping bag, he was unable to see what was happening, but he felt a strong, silent force moving him. This strange sensation continued briefly before he was set down again, leaving him confused and anxious. When morning came, Ostman examined his campsite for any signs of disturbance. The more he thought about it, the more he questioned whether he had imagined the whole ordeal. Was it a bear, a prank by other campers, or had he simply dreamed it during a half-sleep state? No evidence suggested anyone or anything had been near his tent. The untouched nature of his campsite only added to his frustration. Despite these interruptions, Ostman wasn't ready to leave. His curiosity now shifted from finding gold to understanding these nocturnal disruptions. Each day, he mulled over possible explanations, each more far-fetched than the last. But as each night approached, his initial excitement for adventure was replaced by a cautious watchfulness. He spent his days wandering the nearby woods, looking for tracks or any sign that might explain the disturbances. At night, he adjusted his sleeping position, trying different spots around the campsite, hoping that a change in location might prevent further incidents. Yet, the silent nights continued to pass without any tangible evidence to explain what had happened. Increasingly, Ostman felt both annoyed and intrigued by the consistent lack of resolution. Was there really something out there? Or was the isolation of the woods playing tricks on his mind? His plans for a peaceful retreat had already been thoroughly disrupted, and now each sunset brought with it a mix of dread and a bizarre sense of anticipation. What would happen next? Could he solve the puzzle of these unsettling events, or would the answers remain just out of reach, hidden in the shadows of the forest? Albert Ostman found himself in a peculiar situation during his camping trip that seemed straight out of a fantasy novel. Late one night, he was forcibly taken and carried through the dense woods for about 3 hours. As dawn broke, he had the chance to see his captors clearly for the first time. A family that could have belonged to a myth or a tall tale. This unusual family consisted of an elderly couple and 2 younger members, presumably their children. The elderly woman was notably large, towering over 7 feet tall and weighing close to 500 pounds. Standing next to her, the elderly man was even more massive, his size and presence so intimidating that Ostman doubted whether his firearm could offer any real protection against such giants. Moreover, Ostman feared that using his gun might provoke them into aggression rather than defense. The family communicated among themselves in a language that was completely alien to Ostman. This added to his anxiety as he couldn't understand their discussions or guess their intentions. The language barrier left him feeling more isolated, as he had no way to express his fears or negotiate for his release. As the light of the morning grew stronger, Ostman took the opportunity to observe his captors' features and behaviors. Their physical appearances were unlike anything he had ever seen, and their movements were peculiar yet fascinating. Ostman speculated about their origins and the reasons they might have had for bringing him to their location. He wondered if they were merely curious about him or if they had other, more sinister purposes. Throughout his captivity, Ostman felt a mix of fear and curiosity. The giants seemed to show a mild interest in him, almost as if he were a strange object they were examining. This detached curiosity made Ostman feel even more vulnerable and out of place, enhancing the surreal nature of his experience. Caught in what seemed like an incomprehensible game, Ostman pondered the lives of these beings. He imagined what their daily routines might include, what foods they might eat, and how they communicated effectively among themselves. All these questions circulated in his mind, but the inability to communicate made it impossible for him to ask them directly. As the day wore on, Ostman considered his escape options. He debated whether it was possible to slip away unnoticed or if it was safer to wait and hope they would release him. The potential consequences of making the wrong move weighed heavily on him, creating a dilemma about whether to act or remain passive. Ostman tries to understand what's happening as things around him change. A forest's hidden sentinels. The hours he spent in the presence of the giants were filled with tension and unease. He was constantly alert, watching for any sign of what might happen next. This experience, though it would eventually end with his release, deeply affected Ostman. It challenged his views on the natural world and opened his mind to the possibility of undiscovered creatures living hidden away in the forest. Reflecting on the ordeal, Ostman realized that his encounter might forever change the way he looked at the wilderness. Once a place of beauty and solitude, now a realm where unknown and formidable beings might dwell just beyond the next turn in the trail. Albert Ostman found himself an unwilling guest of a group of large, shaggy beings which appeared as wild, unkempt versions of humans. These creatures, formidable in size and in nature, sustained him with offerings of sweet roots, providing him with just enough nourishment to keep him from starving. As time wore on, the younger members of this strange family began to exhibit a growing curiosity toward their human captive. Albert, sensing an opportunity, decided to cultivate a relationship with these beings through small acts of creativity. He fashioned a ladle from the sparse materials available around him. This simple utensil, primitive yet functional, seemed to intrigue his captors, perhaps bridging a gap between their disparate worlds. He also transformed discarded snuff cans into playthings for the younger creatures, which served both as a form of amusement and a token of goodwill. Albert recalled a story he had once heard about a man who escaped a perilous situation by using snuff to temporarily blind a bull. Inspired by this tale, he cautiously introduced the young Sasquatch to a box of snuff, observing their reactions closely. The immediate fascination displayed by both the young and the elder Sasquatch with the substance confirmed Albert's suspicion that this could be a critical element in his escape plan. Days turned into weeks, with Albert's every action serving a dual purpose. His simple gifts and interactions, though seemingly benign, were carefully calculated moves in a complex game of survival and escape. Each exchange, each shared moment was a step in learning more about his captor's behaviors and preferences. As the young Sasquatch played with the makeshift toys, Albert noted how these interactions could lead to an opportunity for escape. He continued to observe and engage, understanding more with each passing day about the dynamics within the group. His strategy was taking shape, relying on the curious nature and the simple joys of his captors to create a path to freedom. The more he interacted with the Sasquatch, the more he understood their simplistic yet profound fascination with new objects. The snuff especially was a point of intense interest. Albert used this to subtly test their responses and limits, meticulously noting each reaction that could later be used to his advantage. As the weeks stretched on, Albert's collection of crafted items grew, as did his understanding of the creatures. Each item, each gesture of goodwill, was a carefully placed piece in the intricate mosaic of his escape plan. He was not just surviving, but actively forging bonds that he hoped would ultimately lead to his release. While the sweet roots sustained his physical strength, his mental fortitude was bolstered by the plans he carefully laid out. His existence in the valley became a delicate balance of nurturing relationships with the Sasquatch and planning his departure. Every interaction, every shared moment, was a brick in the foundation of his hopeful escape. Albert's time with the Sasquatch was a testament to his resilience and adaptability. By turning every small interaction into a potential tool for escape, he was not merely a captive but a strategist, playing a long game against daunting odds. His story was one of survival, not through brute force but through the subtle art of manipulation and the careful building of trust and curiosity. Ostman had carefully planned his escape, but he hadn't anticipated the bizarre scene that unfolded when the old man got hold of the snuff. It started innocently enough with a spark of interest that quickly turned into an insatiable craving. The old man lunged for the box of snuff, poured it into his mouth in one frantic gulp, and then proceeded to meticulously lick every last grain from the container. Ostman watched from a distance, a mix of relief and disgust churning in his stomach. He had intended to use the man's fascination as a distraction, but the sight was unsettling. As the snuff took effect, the man's delight turned into discomfort, his face contorting in pain. Ostman knew this was his moment. Grabbing his rifle, he fired several shots into the air, the sound echoing off the mountainside, a clear signal of his desperate need to escape. He ran with all his might, grateful when no pursuit came. The mountains seemed to absorb the noise, and Ostman's footsteps were the only sound as he made his way down to safety. When he reached a nearby camp, Ostman was out of breath and his nerves were frayed. He presented himself as a simple lost traveler, carefully omitting any mention of the snuff or the peculiar old man. He feared that any mention of the encounter would paint him as delusional, so he wove a believable story of an innocent wanderer misled by the trails. Ostman spent some time with the locals, sharing meals and listening to their stories. He offered nothing about his own experiences, keeping the strange events to himself. As the days passed, he became increasingly aware of how alien the wilderness had become to him. Once a place of exploration and excitement, it now seemed fraught with hidden dangers and unexplainable occurrences. Ostman decided that his days of venturing into the unknown were over. He could not risk encountering something so inexplicable again. The decision to stay silent and avoid the wilds gnawed at him. Even as he settled into a quieter life, the memory of that day lingered. He often found himself haunted by the image of the old man with the snuff, a reminder of the thin line between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Ostman's life became a shadow of what it once was, filled with mundane tasks that never quite distracted him from what he had witnessed. Now free, Ostman must deal with what he went through and how it changed him. The lasting legend of the forest, Behemoth's years rolled by, and Ostman grew older, his hair whitened by time, his features etched with lines of thought and worry. The incident with the snuff was a distant yet vivid memory, one that he revisited in quiet moments, wondering about the realities he had shunned. Had he chosen correctly by prioritizing his reputation over the truth? The question remained unanswered, floating in his mind like a leaf in the wind, a constant reminder of the day when reality had shifted in the most unexpected way. The vast and untamed wilderness, stories have circulated for ages about giant human-like creatures that roam the dense forests and remote landscapes. These tales, which seem to echo ancient myths, depict beings so large that they dwarf any person who claims to have encountered them. Over the years, the constant retelling of these stories has kept them alive, captivating the imaginations of many who hear them. On the other side of this fascination stands the scientific community, which demands solid physical proof before these accounts can be taken seriously. Scientists insist that without tangible evidence, such as photographs, physical traces, or biological samples, these stories cannot be considered true. Their approach is grounded in a methodology that values observable, repeatable outcomes over personal anecdotes or second-hand tales. The persistence of these stories raises intriguing questions about why they continue to be shared. Are they simply thrilling explorations of the unknown, or do they fulfill a deeper psychological need among those who pass them on? Despite the intrigue they generate, the reluctance of scientists to recognize these tales as factual without conclusive evidence creates a significant barrier to their acceptance. The scientific method is built on the foundation of verifiable facts, and in the absence of such facts, these stories remain in the realm of speculation. This insistence on evidence ensures that tales of giant humanoids are often relegated to the category of folklore or fiction, rather than being documented as scientific reality. As these narratives of encounters with colossal beings continue to spread, they stir both fascination and skepticism. This reflects a broader human experience of grappling with the unknown and recognizing the limits of our knowledge. The tales challenge our understanding of what is possible in the natural world, blurring the lines between reality and myth. Yet, without definitive evidence to support them, these stories often prompt more questions than they answer, leaving them suspended between belief and doubt. They engage the imagination, providing a bridge between the familiar world and the realms of the fantastical. For many, these tales offer a glimpse of a world that could exist beyond the edges of our maps and the reach of our understanding. As long as these stories continue to be told, they will likely remain subjects of both curiosity and controversy, occupying a nebulous space in the cultural consciousness. They serve as reminders of the human desire for wonder and the enduring appeal of stories that transport us beyond the everyday into the realm of the extraordinary. Throughout history, several people have described the incident involving Albert Ostman as particularly unnerving, hinting at a darker allure to his story. Ostman, a man known for his quiet and unassuming nature, stands at the center of this strange tale. His preference for privacy and simplicity over seeking public attention makes his claims difficult to dismiss entirely. Ostman himself was not one to chase fame. He preferred a quiet and unremarkable life. Yet, his account of encountering a Bigfoot creature has become one of the most respected stories in the field of cryptozoology. It raises the question of why such a private individual would come forward with a story so extraordinary unless there was some truth to it, or perhaps a hidden motive covered by his seemingly modest character. Skeptics point out that the ongoing absence of physical evidence significantly undermines any claims of Bigfoot's existence. However, those who believe in Bigfoot argue that the creature is exceptionally skilled at avoiding humans, moving through its forest home with an expertise that seems almost unreal. This idea, while intriguing, serves as a convenient excuse for the lack of solid proof and helps keep the creature's legend alive, nestled in folklore rather than established fact. The discussion around Ostman's encounter is made even more complex by the lasting interest in the details of his story. Why, if the encounter was as troubling as he described, did Ostman decide to share his experience with the world? Could the allure of the unknown, even for a man as reclusive as him, have been too compelling to keep to himself? Or is there a basic human desire to turn our experiences into stories, no matter their truthfulness, to feel connected to something greater than our everyday lives? The ongoing debate over the existence of Bigfoot, fueled by stories like Ostman's, remains a rich area for both doubters and believers. It serves as a poignant reminder of the thin line between what's real and the stories we choose to believe. Whether Ostman's account was an elaborate tale or a genuine encounter with the unknown, it continues to be a fascinating part of North American folklore, reflecting our collective fascination with the wilderness and the undiscovered. This ongoing fascination with Ostman's tale illustrates a broader cultural interest in tales of the wild and unknown. It taps into our collective love for stories that push the boundaries of our understanding of nature and our place within it. Counting of his story invites us to ponder not just the possibility of undiscovered creatures, but also the depths of human experience and the lengths to which we might go to make sense of inexplicable events in our lives. As such, Ostman's story, whether true or not, enriches the tapestry of human storytelling, providing fodder for campfire tales and scholarly debates alike. Years later, the legend of Bigfoot still draws people into the wild to look for answers. Tracing the silent steps of North America's trail, this elusive being is reputed to be a master of concealment, merging seamlessly into the dense forests and rugged terrain that make up its home. The ability to avoid detection is often highlighted as a key trait of Bigfoot, conveniently explaining why clear evidence of its existence remains elusive. Legends say that Bigfoot inhabits some of the continent's most inaccessible regions. These areas include thick forests, steep mountains, and expansive stretches of untouched land far from civilization's reach. The challenging nature of these environments makes them perfect for fostering stories of a creature that is always just beyond reach. In these harsh landscapes, Bigfoot is said to move easily, evading the prying eyes of those seeking it. However, practical considerations cast doubt on Bigfoot's existence. The remote areas alleged to be Bigfoot's home are hard for humans to access and difficult for a large population of such creatures to thrive in. Despite decades of determined searching by enthusiasts and professionals alike, no definitive evidence such as bones, clear videos, or verified DNA samples has surfaced. This ongoing absence of proof invites skepticism and questions the reality of Bigfoot. The intrigue surrounding Bigfoot has also spawned a small industry. Books, documentaries, and guided tours promising encounters with the creature continue to attract attention and generate revenue. This commercial aspect keeps the Bigfoot narrative alive, encouraging continuous exploration and speculation. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the story of Bigfoot captivates many. The creature is often portrayed as a symbol of the wilderness itself, untamed and untouched. Each new sighting or piece of evidence adds layers to the Bigfoot lore, fueling further curiosity and debate. Enthusiasts pore over every blurry image and ambiguous footprint, hoping to add credibility to their beliefs. Meanwhile, the narrative of Bigfoot as a nearly supernatural entity capable of evading human knowledge grows. The creature is often imagined as moving silently through the forest, watching from the shadows with keen eyes, always a step ahead of those tracking it. This portrayal taps into a deep-seated human fascination with the unknown and the untouched realms of nature. The quest for Bigfoot is not just about discovering a mythical creature. It's about the allure of adventure and the thrill of chasing a legend. Each expedition into the wild in search of Bigfoot is a path into the unknown, pushing back against the boundaries of the known world. As the years pass, the search for Bigfoot continues, propelled by a blend of hope, curiosity, and the enduring appeal of the unknown. This search is more than just a quest for a creature. It is a reflection of humanity's eternal desire to explore. The saga of Bigfoot, thus, remains not just a tale of a hidden animal, but a narrative of human endeavor against the vast backdrops of the American wilderness. The elusive figure of Bigfoot has long captivated the imaginations of many. Yet, any evidence that might prove this creature's existence is often met with doubt and dismissal by the scientific community and mainstream media. Footprints, hair, and feces, supposedly left behind by Bigfoot, are frequently deemed hoaxes or mistaken identities of common animals. Without thorough scientific validation, distinguishing real signs of Bigfoot from ordinary or altered items remains a significant challenge. The field of Bigfoot research is plagued by disagreements among experts regarding the creature's nature. Some speculate that Bigfoot could be a unique type of primate or human-like creature, while others suggest it might be a surviving descendant of an ancient ancestor or an undiscovered species of ape. This uncertainty complicates the development of effective methods to study and gather evidence about Bigfoot. The stigma associated with Bigfoot research often deters serious scientists from investing in this area, pushing the study to the fringes of legitimate scientific inquiry. Considered by many as pseudoscience or mere entertainment, Bigfoot research struggles to gain respect, funding, and opportunities for comprehensive investigation. Despite these obstacles, there have been instances when evidence thought to be related to Bigfoot has surfaced, offering exciting yet inconclusive glimpses into the creature's potential reality. The Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967, which allegedly shows a female Bigfoot strolling through a Californian forest, remains one of the most hotly debated pieces of evidence. While detractors dismiss the footage as a well-crafted hoax, several experts maintain its authenticity, claiming the film is genuine and unaltered. The pursuit of Bigfoot is further complicated by the creature's reputed ability to seamlessly blend into its surroundings, making it nearly impossible to track. Researchers who venture into the wilderness in hopes of uncovering definitive proof often return with more questions than answers. The ongoing debate and lack of consensus on what to look for or how to categorize Bigfoot only add layers of complexity to these endeavors. As researchers continue their quest, the accumulation of physical evidence like footprints, hair, and fecal matter does more to fuel stories and speculation than provide scientific proof. DNA tests on hair samples attributed to Bigfoot occasionally reveal genetic sequences that match no known animal, sparking further intrigue about their origins. However, the skepticism surrounding these findings cannot be overstated. The ambiguous nature of the evidence, coupled with Bigfoot's supposed mastery of evasion, renders the task of studying the creature exceedingly difficult. This, combined with the controversies over the creature's classification, hinders efforts to obtain conclusive proof. Each new discovery prompts a fresh wave of excitement and debate, keeping the legend of Bigfoot alive. While definitive evidence remains elusive, the fascination with Bigfoot persists, driven by a blend of curiosity, hope, and the thrill of the chase. As time passes, the search for Bigfoot remains a compelling narrative, marked by sporadic findings that tantalize but ultimately fall short of scientific corroboration. Researchers persist in their efforts, each new expedition into the wilderness fueled by the slim hope of encountering the unknown. In the vast unexplored spaces of North America, the quest for Bigfoot carries on, embodying the enduring human desire to explore and understand the unexplained. What do you think? Is Bigfoot real or just a myth? Like, comment, and subscribe to explore more.